Welcome to this press briefing for Montenegro Goes Europe. I call for so-called Zeitenwende for Montenegro and the EU relations. We have Zeitenwende is a German word which is now in the first year after the war very famous all over Europe, I think worldwide, because Chancellor Scholz, Prime Minister of Germany, used it 1 year ago at his famous speech to determine, it's more or less translated as epochal shift, that our post-war world order has came to an end by the Russian invasion against Ukraine on the 24th of February. He held the speech on the 27th of February. Zeitenwende means that things cannot be the same like they were before, that we need to change, that we need to react, and that Europe has reacted already, has given the EU candidate status to Ukraine, and has lived up to the challenge, not perfectly, but it has lived up to the challenge institutionally and also, sadly not militarily. We have not helped Ukraine enough, but fiscally and industrially, yes, we are responding and we are living up to the situation. What we need, of course, now is very clear. We need to also change things for Montenegro. And here, unfortunately, in the relation between Montenegro and the European Union, I cannot see any Zeitenwende. Therefore, I came here as the chairman of Montenegro Goes Europe, the Austrian Society for EU Integration, to call for this Zeitenwende, meaning a fast-track EU integration of Montenegro, because it's already NATO ally, it's a wonderful country, has fulfilled all the criteria, has concluded most of the negotiations. Rest can be done in the process of joining or also inside. We should, as Austria, support that maximum. This is our historic, moral and political strategic obligation. Also, please, Montenegro as NATO ally, support Austria in NATO. And that is the conclusion of what we need to do. And I'm here in Podgorica to make that very clear. We need to respond to the challenge, and it also means changes for the Balkans. And obviously the strategic shift towards NATO inside the EU means also that we have to support our allies more. Montenegro, but also Macedonia, North Macedonia and Albania allies. Serbia, not at all. And Kosovo and Bosnia first have to get into NATO. So it's not the idea, like some American diplomats, keep the lid up on the Balkans because we are focused on Ukraine. No, we in Europe have to solve all the problems at once. And Zeitenwende means that we need to focus on this at this moment. And it's not the idea to appease Serbia because we don't want another conflict in the Balkans. Good, that's the American perspective, But we are not at the brink of war in the Balkans, We need to make very sure that we have clarity in the institutional framework here, because that's we are not in the 1990s. We are now in 2023 on the 9th of March. So what we need is that the NATO allies go fast in the EU, that also Serbia will be isolated if they continue to support Russia, but of course also Serbia to be then integrated if they recognize Kosovo and join NATO. So that's the logic, and that's what we need. I'm here in the beautiful capital Podgorica, and I'm saying Montenegro needs to join the European Union 2024 and already organize European Parliament elections 2024. This is the way to do it. And we need to integrate all Montenegrin political parties in the appropriate political families of the European political family system, especially in the Big Five. I will make concrete proposals to that one as well. Also, it's very important that Montenegro is not joining the Open Balkans initiative. I made that very clear in my campaign throughout the whole year, because that's the completely wrong direction. We need no Open Balkans for Russia with Serbia as a hub. We need all countries in NATO, EU and the Euro, and that is very important. And Montenegro has the Euro already. That's wonderful. They have done wonderful progress because of that, and there is simply a will to the West, because there is clearly and good leadership for the West. That is, of course, President Djukanovic, who is now up for re-election. I endorse him because why? Because he is the rock of the West. He has delivered NATO membership, the Euro, he has the statehood, obviously most important, and he will deliver EU membership. and then it's anyhow for him also time to retire in some years after a new mandate, and then also maybe to face some of these issues related to his past, which he has not done so properly. That is up to the courts, not to me, but it's not now, Mrs. Park and others. Yeah? It's not now. Now we need him to be in power to steer this country towards the West, and that's really very important. And we don't need any kind of Dodik fans here in power in the presidential palace, because that is very worrying. And all these experiments of the diplomats here in the last 2 years or 3 years now have not been so utterly successful, to say the least. So we need really some massive improvements here. Zeitenwende. This is for sure the integration of Montenegro in the European Union. We need to isolate Serbia, because in the contrast you see the two countries were until 2006 united, but the one has developed to the west, the one has been stuck in the whatever pivot to the east, I would even call it, after 2008. And that is very unfortunately, so isolation in case Serbia continues not to recognize Kosovo is absolutely necessary. Then I have made already the statement for Bosnia and for Kosovo to join NATO 2024, and also to invest massively in the infrastructure of this country. Montenegro has an infrastructure challenge and a budgetary challenge because of the infrastructure challenge, and this must be addressed together with the European institutions. It's also in our interest to have the Adriatic Highway and to have the NATO tunnel towards Kosovo, and also the high-speed railway from Vienna to Patras along the coast. This is all very much in the interest of European taxpayers, so I'm calling for that. Yes, I'm also calling for Montenegro to have a free open access to the Austrian labor market, because unfortunately Austria is a very problematic country these years. We have problems here with the question of Mercosur. They want to block that, and we have problems with the Schengen, because Austria is vetoing Schengen. One has really to think about what Austria really wants. They don't want to join NATO like Sweden. They don't want to join the free trade, the opening to the west of the EU. They don't want to do that. They don't want Schengen to be enlarged with Romania, a NATO ally, and with Bulgaria. I really wonder what's the role of Austria in the European Union. Together with Hungary, we are getting to be the second most problematic country, and that's real. We have to consider that. Yeah, I'm not so far to say that we would be better off in the EU as without Austria and Hungary, but maybe to freeze their membership and to give them a cooling off period, and to think what exactly we are doing, because it's not Switzerland here, it's EU members, and Hungary is even with NATO, and then they still work so closely with Russian economic interests. That's very appalling. So that's why I'm calling here also Montenegro to support NATO membership of Austria, because that should be the logic. We are all united in Euro and the NATO and in, of course, the European Union. And Austria to open the labor market, because unfortunately Austria is also a very xenophobic country in that area. And also the public call to support the EU FTAs, because we need to have prosperity. Montenegro is a trading nation with access to the sea, so that's really very important, and we have to work on that. And we have to also improve Austria and Montenegro relations. I will talk about that one in a moment. Yes, we have had already a very active year. We have published an open letter in 2022 already, calling for Montenegro as EU member. We sent it to the European institution, published it online. And I hope there will be a change of attitude. I was also in Brussels calling for Montenegro to be in the European Union. And after these elections now for president, I hope there will be a good result, and then we can push with the strategy forward. Because Montenegro has it deserved. It is ready, and it could be easily done. It's just a willingness of people like President Macron, who has postponed enlargement towards the end of the days, because he anyhow never liked the dissolution of Yugoslavia. He doesn't like more votes he perceives as pro-German, because they are pro-European votes, Montenegro will be, and he doesn't want to share power in the council with the voting rights with smaller nations. But all this cannot be changed at all. and then to exclude countries because of French wishes is absolutely anti-European, and this is the big problem of Mr. Macron. He is very anti-European when you think about it, and he is really deeply problematic for peace in the Europe. He has also led directly into this war because of his basically green lighting the invasion of Russia into Ukraine by withdrawing any form of security guarantee in February 2022. And that we have this most expensive war in post-Cold War history, and maybe since the Second World War. We have it now, and it's a tragic loss of life and of treasure and of fiscal capacity because of appeasement. I'm really very disappointed on the French, and they shouldn't be allowed to stop EU enlargement, and just because they have some fantasies of the past, how wonderful Serbia, Yugoslavia was. This is really very worrying. Now I have also very clearly the statement here. It is for the free NATO allies. That's the logic. I also make similar events in Albania now, but also in North Macedonia. We need the free NATO allies in the European Union. And no, we don't need Serbia at the moment in the European Union. We need first Kosovo and Bosnia in the European Union and in NATO and in the Euro in case of Bosnia, because that's the logic. And here I have this very clear statement, because it's also easy to say, but I have this precedent because I was myself involved in the debate what to do with Romania, Bulgaria, Croatia in the 2000s. And it was very clear that at that time, and I was an advisor, it was now 15 years ago, but it was very clear that in the European Parliament that we need to push hard. Because Bulgaria, Romania and Croatia were loyal allies in the Balkan Wars. In 1990, they were decisive to block the airport of Pristina for the Russians. And so George Bush was there, and he was very clear on that one, and he said, let's get them in. And then he pushed all the doors, and he worked very hard, and he was a great friend of Europe. The Austrians didn't like him because that's the cradle of European anti-Americanism. But he has helped Bulgaria, Romania and Croatia in the European Union and in NATO, and this was really wonderful, and it was a good decision to take, yeah? And we can be really very happy about it. And the same can now be done with North Macedonia, Albania, and with Montenegro, of course, and also with Kosovo, Bosnia, and with Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia. Hi, my friends, by the way, from Georgia. I feel with you, I stand with you, and please continue your pro-European revolution. This agent law must be withdrawn, and Georgia must get the EU candidate status. Then we have now the plan, EU 37. What does it mean? I say very clearly, we need to get all these countries into the European Union fast by 2029. And so the best is to organize at least observer MEP elections in June 2024, May, June, for these countries. So they have already the people appointed, and they can observe at least regularly the process of decision making in the European Parliament, help with the final touches of the accession process as elected or observer MEPs, and then to join, of course, then fully in 2029 in the case of Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, Kosovo, Bosnia, and hopefully even Serbia if they turn to the West in between. And if not, we can wait for Serbia until the last day, because if they stay with Russia, they must be anyhow isolated. But the free NATO allies can be much faster, and that's what I propose, obviously. So the freeze of Serbia is the logical way forward. And of course, not to join the open Balkans, and that's really very important. And I really reject the open Balkans. I think I was very clear in that one. And here we have a very, very good clear statement for NATO membership of the so-called Vilnius 4 group. That's for me, Austria and Kosovo, Bosnia and Ukraine. Already in July they should join. We are just 5 days ahead from a very tragic anniversary. That's the anniversary of the Mariupol genocide. And I'm absolutely calling for Montenegro to also mark this day as a tragic day. 16th of March is when Putin took the revenge on the people of Mariupol, because they resisted him 2014. So he killed them 2022, and he killed them with unprecedented force and annihilated that city. and that's a big war crime, and he will face justice for that. Yeah, unfortunately, there is also counter-offensive going on, not just militarily in Russia, but also politically, especially around Orban, who is very active now also to turn the Austrian People's Party into his proxy. And he has succeeded in some ways, because Austria is not in the EU training mission, doesn't give any kind of weapons to Ukraine, doesn't want to join the joint ammunition production facility, and doesn't want to join NATO, first of all. But he is also active in Croatia with the president of Croatia. So, and the result is obviously that we have a big Central European problem here around Hungary. We have Schengen blocked, we have the training mission, 3 countries not participating, and we have this kind of soft underbelly which the countries of the former monarchy are to some extent, but Slovenia, they are very good, but Slovakia, and most of all also Poland and the Czech Republic, I'm very proud. They are really great countries, and I recommend Montenegro. Take a line out of the book from Czech Republic, from Poland. These are wonderful countries who are in this crisis really supportive, and work closely with them. And also they are bringing a lot of tourists to Montenegro. So, and also Slovenia, obviously. So we have then this problem, neutral Austria and neutral Serbia, and they put this axis of evil. And I know very well, even in the NATO debate in Montenegro, it was a big topic that neutrality is promoted by Serbia. You don't have to be in NATO, you can be just in the EU, and blah, blah, blah. This was very harmful to the debate, and that's one of my big motivation to carry this NATO debate against all the odds into the Austrian public. Because why? Because they are sitting back, you know, we are neutral, we let the others from the former monarchy countries die and fight for us. We don't care, because we are anyhow secure by the Americans, but we are very anti-American. And so this kind of grotesque policy, going like Sebastian Kurz, going to Ukraine and to other countries, promoting neutrality as a role model, is utterly unacceptable, because it was never very good. It was always something which was imposed on us by the Soviets as a price for them to withdraw. We negotiated just in the last moment to have that neutrality in exchange for their last soldiers to leave. So it was imposed clearly. We were negotiating with a very dangerous animal, the Soviet Union, and we have accepted this neutrality, but we always wanted to be in the West. And the moment the Soviets were grumbling, we applied for the EU. They blocked it all the time before. We could then join the EU. Kohl allowed us to get into the EU without NATO membership. That was good at that time, because the socialists, under the grip of the Russian proxies, have blocked NATO membership, and then we anyhow wanted to join, but then Russia bought our politicians also from the center-right, and that's the tragedy of Austria. And that's why we are not in the NATO, like Finland and Sweden are now going. Yes. I call Montenegro to help us on that one. Tell your Montenegrinians, Austrians to vote for NATO. I have this public petition online. Also sign the public petition for the opening of the Austrian labor market for Montenegro and the Balkans. And also sign for EU FTA and for the boycott of Russia. This is very important. Please do that. And Austria, obviously, I think it's the historic and moral, strategic and political obligation of Austria to support EU membership of Montenegro 2024. We are equal Europeans, and that's how we should be. And Austria must also issue an official apology for our colonial crimes in Montenegro. Obviously also for the crimes in the Second World War, when Austria was not a state but annexed to Germany. But many Austrians committed many crimes in Montenegro and the Balkans, but also we have apologized for this one extensively, but it's always good to repeat it. I am very sorry for the crimes of my grandfather's generation, and I'm very sorry for the colonial exploitation of Montenegro, for the suppression of the Krivossia uprising. Yes, I'm very sorry. And also for the occupation in the World War I, and for the occupation and terror regime in World War II. I'm very sorry we accepted and forgot Montenegro in the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, and we were very poor at that time. We couldn't do a lot of that, but that was very crime. And also that we somehow lived with Yugoslavia, and we didn't protest about these bunkers of nation, this kind of socialist terror state which Yugoslavia most of its time was, and we have easily accepted it. We traded, and we were happy not to be attacked. Yeah? And so it is all completely wrong, and we didn't help a lot also in the 90s. Now Austria had a period where they helped then after the Balkan Wars, a decade. But now, unfortunately, since 2014, Austria is again quite absent from Montenegro, and I apologize for that. But most of all, it's important to make it very clear in the context of the bigger decolonization debate that we are very sorry. It was not the golden time, Austria, 1918 to 1815 from the Vienna Congress, where we somehow foxed our way into the possessions of the Venetians at the Adriatic coast. But it is, of course, it was colonial exploitation, obviously, and I'm very sorry for all this. And we need to start with an apology to be ready for a common future in a fair and just understanding of our common past. Yes, Austria should be obviously leading the way now for NATO enlargement, because we have also the missions, military missions in Kosovo and in Bosnia, and we have this obligation, I think, to the countries which we left for too long alone, and we should really care for them, and it's only NATO that aligns. Some in Austria think EU can somehow substitute NATO and so be an alternative alliance like the French have promoted. Geostrategic autonomy, it's all, crumbled and evaporated in 2022, because obviously we see that the only power capable to defend Europe when there is a Russian aggression is America, and to some extent they're the helper of the British and the Nordic. But the will and the capacity and the fiscal and the political capacity and the defense capacity in terms of industry and all other, but most of all, the political connects between military, defense, security and the political will is extremely weak in the key European states, from Italy, France and Germany. If you rely on them, you are certainly, they say later, I'm sorry, they will never forget the genocide, but you are already dead then. So it's not very helpful, ultimately. It's politically correct, but you are dead. So what we need is America, who is helping you before you die, and helping you with weapons, with money, with advisors, with intelligence. This is very serious, and this is what you need when you are attacked, and this is very good. So continued neutrality of Austria, I can only judge it as high treason, and I'm absolutely against it, and that's why I started this people's petition. I'm campaigning now for NATO membership of Austria. I was in Innsbruck and in the western states, and I went everywhere, and now I have already over 3,060 signatures, and I'm continuing this campaign. Second campaign of mine is also the opening of the Austrian labor market, because next to neutrality, which is our big problem in Austria, it's the xenophobia, our big problem, and this kind of protectionism of the labor market. And we have unfortunately not opened the labor market as much as Germany has already and is going to do more. And so I say, for the countries which are in the EU in the future, the EU candidate countries, like Montenegro, like Ukraine, we could open the labor market permanently. Not the same rights like the Romanians, but if you have a job with a labor contract, you can come and you get the residence and the work permit unbureaucratically and fast, basically as a right, because you are the citizen of the EU candidate country. It's not exactly the same like the full free movement of workers, but it's a step towards that, and it makes life much easier. And why not to come for some years to Austria? Many of the Montenegrins will come back because here is a much more wonderful country. Some of them will stay, and we anyhow need workers, and there is of course a big differential in the wages still. It will be much smaller by more competition for the labor, and so it's much better. So I call for the opening of the labor market. Please support that. And the third one, I will talk less about it, but I made many videos about these protectionist tendencies in Austria. Again, now yesterday our Deputy Prime Minister said no to Mercosur. And of course, that's a big problem. So we need to open up our markets to the West. We need to be part of the West and have a free trade agreement. And Montenegro, as a future EU member, should already have a clear policy. Are you in favor of trade with Latin America or with America? If yes, then also you can tell your Montenegrins in Austria to support the petition and also make it very clear you want to have trade agreements with America and with, of course, the United States and of course Mercosur. And it's really very, very sad that Austria is not for that. Yeah, then we have the regional accession partnership, Austria-Montenegro. I'm very much in favor of a federal system, also for Montenegro actually, that is for the future maybe. But what we can do now is, because we have 9 federal states in Austria, so what we can do is to have Tusi and Burgenland, and that's a logical match. Then Kota, Herzeg and Novi and Tivat and Upper Austria. And then Budva, Cetinje with Salzburg, Bar Ulcin with Carinthia, Nikšić, Danilovgrad with Lower Austria, and Podgorica obviously with Vienna, and then Bielopole, Sančak with Tyrol, and then we have Plušine, Savnik and Čablak with Steiermark, and Rošaje, Berane, Plav, Andrejevića with Vorarlberg. You know, I made some logical sense to pair them with the various partners. And I think that's the logic we should all work on and try to develop also the north and also the south of the country, not only coast and Podgorica. There is, of course, in competitive federalism and the economic development model which we in Austria have with regional development agency, regional self-governance of the regions in economic field. This is very effective to make sure that also Austria, for example, is much richer. Salzburg, Tyrol and Vorarlberg and Vienna. We have problems in the south and with Carinthia and with Lower Austria, but it's competitive. You know, it's always a bit of an issue with geography and with connectivity and infrastructure, and obviously with responsibility and innovation and openness towards labor and goods. And some regions are less and some are more. And we should support the ones who are more. And this is the competitive federalism, economic development, Austrian SME model. I'm very much in favor. In terms of economics, I want to say again, Montenegro is today ready for the European Union. Montenegro has reached 48% of EU average according to the statistical yearbook of the 2022 of the European Union. Eurostat, I have the table here. And I say 2024 is very good, and because we are very possible, doable, I wanted to say. Because when you see that, for example, coastal Croatia is at 60%, Montenegro at 48%. And we have several regions, actually most regions in Bulgaria, which are below this Montenegro's threshold with 30 or something like this, yeah, even poorer regions. And also in the north of Greece, we have poorer regions, yeah, and the rest of the Balkans mostly poorer, with exemption of Greater Belgrade region, yeah, which is relatively richer because it's very centralistic country, but the rest of Serbia are very poor. So Montenegro with 48, in my view, absolutely ready for the European Union. Please take a look in the statistical yearbook of Montenegro. Then I want to make a point also why I support Mr. Djukanovic. It's also because he has really supported international investments. And it's not just him supporting, but he has prepared the institution of Montenegro. Because if you want to have international investments, and some of them are like public-private or public investment, like the highways. That's a bit of a different governmental contract. But here in Montenegro, what has happened, especially in the coastal area, you have 3 major, close to €1 billion investments in real estate. Yeah? And this is private money. It's private money from the developer, but also from the people who buy the apartments. So you need an institutional backing, the rule of law, and of course the cadastre, and the land register, which is really working, where hundreds of billions of money hundreds of millions or up to $1 billion can be really invested, trusting these institutions. And because it's always a big issue with the rule of law, everybody says. But you know, that's the best parameter to prove that the rule of law is working. Because it's not a petrol economy, it's an institutional European economy here. There is a huge capital inflow in Montenegro. And why? Because people have trust to the institutions. And that's a big achievement. Individuals buy apartments, and they put their private money into the institutions because they work. So there might be some high-level corruptions, I don't know, certainly in the past. But the thing is that the main institutional framework is so convincing that hundreds of millions of euro, even billions, are moved into Montenegro, not to hide or to disappear, but to invest in property. And that's legitimate Western money, and of course from other parts of the world, from the Gulf states, also from Russia, but they have not bought the politics here. This is very important to understand, because some people thought we are going to invest here and then we buy the political influence. No, Montenegro is in NATO against the odds, and Montenegro joined the sanction regime. And Montenegro has also moved against some of the assets of the Russian oligarchs here. That's impressive. Cheers. And so these things are all happening. And that's really true. But I want to tell again, there is a clear trust of the international capital markets into Montenegro. There is an issue, of course, with the high debt now because of this Chinese. But I want to make the case, why the Chinese highway? Because 20 years ago, after the Balkan Wars, 25 years ago, when the Balkan Wars stopped, it's now 24 years, next year it will be 25 years, 99, there was an assessment how much everything will cost in the Balkans. And it was very clear that it will cost €500 million and only the EU can pay. But the EU decided that's too expensive, we wait until the countries can afford it. So we waited, and then some of the countries lost patience. China came with the cheap credit and with the competent companies, and they did their things themselves, because we failed. The reason why the Chinese are buying things, building things, is because we in Europe failed, because we could have easily done it, but we were not united enough. We didn't build a continental union like China and like the United States or Russia. You can of course assess how good they are, but they have a much bigger pooling potential. They're doing less in Russia, they are a disaster. But in China, even authoritarianism, in a way, they work because they really develop. They have built all the bridges, all the railways possible, even too much. The Americans are also not doing enough, but they are catching up. But we are doing these things actually only inside the EU, and that's the problem. We should have done it there where it's needed the most, where there's least capital, and of course everybody needs highways, of course everybody needs railways, of course everybody needs ports, of course everybody needs energy infrastructure, and of course it matters what happens in Ukraine and the Balkans for us as well. And we see how expensive the disaster in Ukraine is now, because we didn't integrate Ukraine when we could. Yes, Montenegro has this famous highway and these 3 big projects with multi-billion. It's really impressive. They have this Lustica Bay, the Port of Montenegro, the Port of Novi. It's alone 3 big projects, which are all substantially amazing and astonishing. Yes. Then you have EU-funded European infrastructure for Montenegro. Again, I call for a 2,000 billion EU for victory bonds to finance the infrastructure. And first of all, the infrastructure connect to Ukraine, connect to the Balkans, integration of all 9 countries into the European Union, the energy infrastructure, the energy transition in Europe, and the necessary high-speed railway system to build, and of course the tunnels to build. And this must be built together. We must fund it together. We must have a European railway infrastructure company. We must have Eurobonds to fund it. We must have this European energy company I'm talking about, and this 2 trillion package is absolutely necessary. Yes to Euro debts, yes to that, and this is absolutely necessary, and I'm calling for that. In case of Montenegro, I call for a central Adriatic highway, and that's the Adriatic-Ionian highway. And unfortunately, Montenegro has not built it. They went to the north, to Serbia. I say now, what to do? It's very logical. First of all, the northern highway in Andrejevica has to have first a priority towards Peja in Kosovo, and not to Serbia, because it's not with us. So then we go, that's what I call the NATO tunnel between Rošaje and Peja. The second one is the Central Adriatic Highway from Croatia to to Albania, and that must pass via Nikšić and via Podgorica, and a real highway, not just a speedway. And then also we need a fast track in ICE, a high-speed TGV. There's different terms of that, but most logically it's the German train going from basically Linz, Graz, Wels, from Wels in Austria, crossing the Alps. We need a new tunnel there to Zagreb. Zagreb is now building one to Split, and from Split we need one to Trebinje, and from Trebinje we need one to go to Podgorica, and then to Tirana, and then to Patras. A real fast-speed railway network as a competition towards the flight system. That's very good for the regional integration, that's very good for the movement of people, that's very good for tourism, and that's what we need to do. I make always the point that even the emperor in 1901 has opened in Trebinje the railway, and there was a small track railway until Zelenica in Herceg-Novi in the monarchy. I mean, now it's a pedestrian sideway and a promenade. It's very nice. I don't say we need to do the same, but we need, 120 years. We were able to build a significant infrastructure because we were a union, in a way, a customs currency union. Economically, of course, politically it was empire, but politically it was a customs and currency union and an infrastructure union. Not perfect. It disappeared anyhow from history. So I'm not here to defend the Austrian monarchy. I'm here to say that it was possible then because they were sharing, pooling resources and building it according to the European Union-wide necessities, and the same we should do as well. And this cannot never be covered by the Montenegrin budget, and some assistance is also not enough. It must be completely funded by the European taxpayers via the EU, and that's the right thing to do. Yes, here's the opening I have. I will show you the slides as well. In terms of the political party families of Montenegro, I have these 5 major groups identified. I worked on this in the past, 20 years ago, but now in my visit to Brussels, I thought it's really very important, and I checked, and Montenegro is a bit confused in its political party system. There's only the Bosanska Partija in the EPP, and that's very unfortunate because there should be also, I think the movement is called Democratic Party, and this would be also very logically, and I hear there is already negotiations going on, so EPP must have a strong partner here, obviously on the center-right, and that was for me the logic of that one. And then it's also important to have the new orientation of the DPS, because it's more a liberal party in my view, whenever they are the old system party, and this is basically the Djukanovic party. And now in the ALDE, there's only the liberal party of Mr. Popovic, who is a very nice man, but he doesn't have a lot of votes or mandates, to my best knowledge. So DPS, Djukanovic, after these elections, I recommend to go to the ALDE. And the SDP is also in the Social Democrats, because 2 Social Democrats party competing, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's much better to have one big party in that one. And also the URA party is now in the Greens, congratulations. And then some are not happy, some are happy. But for me, that's good when one important party here, 5% at least, to be as well in a European party political family. Congratulations, Mr. Abasovic, that was well done. And then the Democratic Front, that's the party pro-Serbia, and the Serbian Minority Party, and I recommend them to go to the European Conservatives, to Mrs. Meloni. She's anyhow very pro-European now, and she can sort them out, and it's the better alternative, I think, on that one. So DF for the ECR, URA is already in the Greens, DPS for ALDE, SDP as well it's already in BSE, and DS and BS in the EPP. That's the logic. I think it's good logic. And also the Albanian parties should be represented, and I advocate for the same as well in Macedonia. The minority parties, there's, I don't know how the situation very well there, but they need also to be integrated in probably either the EPP or ALDE, depending on their political preferences, but that's the most likely direction. Yes, and then we have the other parties. I will talk in the specific, but I have made it for all political groupings. Yes. Now for the endorsement of the Rock of the West, that's how I call Mr. Djukanovic. I know it's contentious as international Austrian to come here to Montenegro and to publicly endorse one candidate. I normally don't do that, but here it's very important because there is a big rollback effort by the Serbs and by the Russians here, and the other candidates, to my best knowledge, are really, maybe they use European flags, some of them, but they are not really very pro-European, and they are then with a lot of influence from Dodik, from Vucic, or even Russia, and that's very worrying. So I say it's much better to base here on the trusted hand, on the Rock of the West, as I call him, Mr. Djukanovic, for one more election to vote for him, and so I endorse him, because basically my argument is quite simple. He introduced the euro, he broke with Milosevic, he recognized Kosovo, he supports Ukraine, he is the trusted hand of the West, the Rock of the West, and he is opposing the Serb rollback efforts here in Montenegro, and he is able and capable, as he has led already Montenegro into NATO, he can lead Montenegro in the European Union quite fine. He is very competent, he knows how to handle this, and he will bring this upon. And I'm actually quite critical that the EU is then always, and the Western pieces, also the Americans, are, for example, supporting Vucic, who is not for NATO, who has not recognized Kosovo, who is not for Ukraine, who is has not introduced the euro. So he has the backing of the West in Serbia, Vucic, who has done everything wrong, and Djukanovic, who has done everything right in the major issues, has not the support. And I don't understand that anymore. I'm not ready to accept it. The diplomats, I say they should do the diplomats, the economy should do the economy, but in reality they are doing a really terrible job. And we are doing a really good job, the economists, by the way. And so it's really ununderstandable what they are doing. It's beyond reason when you compare the policy towards being hard and brutal towards and having everything expected from Montenegro, perfection, and in Serbia we put the bar so low, and then we endorse a personality as contentious and problematic, who is not delivering. Mr. Vucic is talking nicely, maybe with the diplomats, what I hear, but he and the politicians, but he's not delivering. Djukanovic, NATO, Euro, EU transition, and the Ukraine makes a good performance. So it's much better to endorse him again. And I made a number of videos now for endorsing him with all the various flags. I called the Albanian minority here, I called the Americans, the Austrians, the Europeans, and showed all the aspects. But honestly, you know, he has transformed this country, he has developed it. It's now a working infrastructure, you know, the society, the institutions. There's a lot of money from the international companies putting into this country because they trust the institutions. That's a very good indicator. There are a lot of internationals now living in Montenegro because they are welcome here. That's an indicator. He has also done the multi-ethnic framework. He has given Tusi a municipality, and he has really done a lot to integrate the minorities and to be a European democracy. Very well, very good. If I go, for example, to Preševo and to the Bosnian parts, Sjenica, and these are the minority parts of Serbia, in the south, in the Monsančak, or I go to the Preševo, yeah, then I see a lot of poverty and deprivation and disaster, and they have very little rights over there, the minorities in Serbia. While in Montenegro, they are part of the governing system, very well established, and the municipalities are blossoming, and things are developing, infrastructure is built, and everything is far from perfect. Let's not fool ourselves, you know, in the north of Montenegro is a lot of poverty, in the south as well, but, you know, the people live freely, and despite various incidents which unfortunately happen. A friend of mine from Albania was beaten up by a policeman recently, Mr. Petrac Milo. I shared it on the, you know, there's still a lot, but, you know, there are so many things happening in Serbia. There are a few incidents here, and, you know, it's always then a big thing, and it's followed up, and so, you know, when you compare the two, I say Djukanovic. And when you compare to the other candidates who are here, who are all very closely related to Serbian interests or Bosnian Serb interests, and they are much more part of that direction, then I'm very clear that I support Djukanovic, and shall he do another mandate and lead his country into the European Union, be the historic leader. He created as well this state, he founded it, he believed from the beginning in it, and he has created this wonderful state, not himself, but he has overseen the creation, let's put it like this, and so I support him. He is the historic leader of this country, and he is also the defense of Montenegro against the Serb kind of revanchism backed by Russia, and he is consistently on that one. He doesn't speak a good English, but okay, that I also don't do, but he has a problematic past, Many have it, and especially the Americans, they were also part of that problematic past, because it was very problematic region, and all the 90s were very problematic. We all know that during the embargo times there was a necessity to fund the opposition and to do many things, and they were done like that, And so let's appeasement is wrong. Support for working allies is correct, and the ones who deliver should be supported. I see it like this. Yes, Montenegro Goes Europe is very much so now NGO in Austria. We have registered in the summer, and now I have done, this is my third time. Now in the summer I was here. I was back then in October. I was twice, actually, if I'm correctly even, and then now back here after the winter, and I've done a big TV interview, it's online. I've done now many videos about Montenegro in all details and aspects. All my travels I have documented on my video channel. I have done also press conferences in Vienna about it and informed the media about the association, and that has been really very good, and I will continue to do exactly like that. Yes, so this is about the situation. So please see my YouTube channel. When you see this video, you're following it anyhow already, and that's very good. And I recommend Montenegro as EU member, as investment destination, as holiday destination, as cultural tourist, adventure tourist, for living. It's also very nice whenever it's raining today. But Montenegro is a very good country. You can live here safely, and you can really enjoy, and your money can be invested here safely. It's very good. Then we have here also the plan to work on this association. What I want to do with the association is also very clear. I want to work on that one. In Austrian association, it's called Montenegro Goes Europe, because we want to promote the EU integration of Montenegro. And then we have also here the Montenegro and Austrian Friendship Society. That is what I want to build up. And so in the coming future, I want to make sure that I have here my partners and friends to be organized in a Montenegro and Austrian Friendship Society. Please check this online system. It's established, many countries have it, bilateral friendship societies. And that's what I want here. Also, I do the same in Albania and in Kosovo, maybe in other countries, let's see. And then I want the Friends of Austria in Montenegro to be organized and to have established. I will come now regularly again, probably in May again. I'm not sure about April, but I will do regular updates. And then to have two associations who work together to connect our two countries, to work on the regional partnerships between the civil society, better knowledge of Montenegro for the Austrians, more tourists to come, more investments to come, and of course Austria to join NATO and Montenegro to join the European Union. And we have already both the euro, that's very important, but we have of course to overcome some issues of the past, yes. We have also to overcome this enlargement fatigue and this rejectionism, but we will do that in that decade, and we will bring Montenegro in the European Union, and it will be just fine. And I'm very much looking forward for that one. And to be organized now after Corona is very important, to have the various organizations, and that's very, very good. Yeah, support Montenegro in the European Union. Also, subscribe my podcast here. I will also do the audio podcast again, but now I really like more the video podcast, and I do that a lot. And I have now also of this trip many more videos showing the country, discussing the politics, endorsing politicians, showing you my travel, and doing things which I think are very useful. And that's what I'm doing, and I ask for your support. Please join our association in Austria. Please build up an association here in Montenegro, and I think that's very good. And let's also work to be successful in terms of building up, so hopefully there will be also Mr. Djukanovic elected. And even if not, yeah, we will work with whoever is there, because the Western integration is very important. If the others then prove to be a disappointment, which I think, okay, what to do? We will try to do our best to support Montenegrins and Montenegrins in Austria, to have the open labor market, to have the full integration into EU, to be in all systems of the European Union, and also to be voting in European Parliament, best in 2024, if not in 2029, and also to avoid any kind of usurp or takeover here for Montenegro, because it's a wonderful country and nobody shall take it over. If it wants to join the European Union, it is very welcome. We are the fair and open union, and that's what we should do, and that's what I'm in favor of. Thanks a lot for listening. Please support Montenegro, visit it, invest here. It's a wonderful country, and please support Montenegro Goes EU, Europe, and to support Montenegro joining the European Union. In 2024 would be the best. If it takes 5 more years, okay, when the French really block everything, but no matter, if we would have anything to say, it is the logic to get this country into the European Union. Thanks a lot. All the best. Bye.